Looks like some kind of a monument. Okay, let me move the camera in just a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, all right. One morning when I was at peace with the world and wondering how to fill in an idle half hour before the next service, the Lama Mingar Dundop came to me. Let us take a walk, Lobsang. I have a small job for you to do. I jumped to my feet, glad to be going out with my guide. It did not take us long to get ready, and then we set off. As we were leaving the temple, one of the cats displayed marked affection, and I could not leave him until the roaring purr had stopped and the tail started to wag. This was a huge cat. We call him Cat. In Tibet, of course, and that was Shimi. Satisfied that his affection was fully reciprocated, he walked solemnly beside us until we were halfway down the mountain. Then, apparently, he remembered that he had left the jewels unguarded, and off he rushed in a very great hurry. Our temple cats were not for ornament only. They were fierce. They were fierce guardians of the masses of uncut gems strewn around the holy figures. In houses, dogs were the guardians, immense mastiffs who would pull a man down and savage him. These dogs could be cowed and driven off. Not so with the cats. Once they attacked, only death could stop them. They were of the type sometimes called Siamese. Tibet is cold, so these cats were nearly black. In hot countries, as I have been told, they are white, the temperature affecting the fur color. Their eyes were blue, and their hind legs were long, giving them a different appearance when they walked. Their tails were long and whip-like, and their voices, no cat ever had a voice like these. The volume and range of tones was almost beyond belief. On duty, these cats prowled in the temples, silent-footed and alert, like dark shadows of the night. If anyone tried to reach the jewels, which were otherwise unguarded, a cat would emerge and leap at the man's arm. Unless he let go immediately, another cat would jump, perhaps from the holy image, straight at the thief's throat. And those cats had claws twice as long as those of the average cat, and they did not let go. Dogs could be beaten off, or perhaps held or poisoned. Not so with the cats. They would put the fiercest mastiffs to flight. Only men who personally knew those cats could approach them when they were on duty. We sauntered on. Down at the road, we turned right through the Pargo Kaling and walked on past the village of Shou, on over the turquoise bridge and right again at the house of Doring. This brought us to the side of the old Chinese mission. As we walked, the Lama Mingar Dundop talked to me. A Chinese mission has arrived, as I told you. Let us have a look at them and see what they're like. My first impression was a very unfavorable one. Inside the house, the men were pacing about arrogantly, unpacking boxes and cases. They appeared to have enough weapons to supply a small army. Being a small boy, I could investigate in a manner which was quite unsuitable for an older person. I crept through the grounds and silently approached an open window. For a time, I stood and watched until one of the men looked up and saw me. He uttered a Chinese oath which threw grave doubts upon my ancestry and left none whatever about my future. He reached for something, so I withdrew before he could throw it. On the Linghor Road again, I said to my guide, "Oh, how their auras turned red, and they waved knives about so." For the rest of the way home, the Lama Mingar Dundop was very thoughtful. After supper, he said to me, "I have been thinking quite a lot about these Chinese. I am going to suggest to the precious one that we make use of your special abilities. Do you feel confident that you can watch them through a screen if it can be arranged?" All I could say was, "If you think I can do it, then I can." The next day, I did not see my guide at all, but the following day, he taught me in the morning, and after the midday meal, he said, We will take a walk this afternoon, Lobsang. Here is a scarf for the first quality, so you do not need to be clairvoyant to know where we are going. 10 minutes to get yourself ready and then meet me in my room. I have to go and see the abbot first. Once again, we set off on a precipitous path down the mountainside. We took a shortcut down over the southwest side of our mountain, and after a very short walk, arrived at the Norbu Linga. The Dalai Lama was very fond of this jewel park and spent most of his free time here. The Patola was a beautiful place outside, but inside it was stuffy through insufficient ventilation and too many butter lamps burning for too long. Much butter had been spilled on the floors throughout the years, and it was not a new experience for a dignified Lama to pursue his stately way down a sloping ramp, tread on a lump of butter covered in dust, and arrive at the bottom of the ramp with an "oh" of astonishment as part of his anatomy hit the stone flooring. The Dalai Lama did not wish to risk being the subject of such an unedifying spectacle, so he stayed at the Norbu Linga whenever possible. This jewel park was surrounded by a stone wall some 12 feet high. The park is only about 100 years old. The palace within had golden turrets, and consisted of 3 buildings which were used for official and state work. An inner enclosure, which also had a high wall, was used by the Dalai Lama as a pleasure garden. Some people have written that officials were forbidden to enter this enclosure. That definitely is not so. They were forbidden to do any official business within the enclosure. I have been there some 30 times and know it well. It contained a very beautiful artificial lake with 2 islands, upon which there were 2 summer houses. At the northwest corner was a wide stone causeway, enabled one to reach the islands and the summer house on each. The Dalai Lama spent much time on one or other of these islands and spent many hours each day in meditation there. Inside the park, there were barracks, which housed some 500 men who acted as personal bodyguards. It was to this place that the Lama Mingar Dundop was taking me. This was my first visit. We walked through the very beautiful land and through an ornamental gateway leading to the inner enclosure. All manner of birds were pecking food from the ground as we entered, and they took no notice of us. We had to get out of their way. The lake was placid, like a highly polished metal mirror. The stone causeway had been newly whitewashed, and we made our way to the farthest island, where the inmost one was sitting in deep meditation. At our approach, he looked up and smiled. We knelt and laid our scarves at his feet, and he told us to sit in front of him. He rang a bell for the buttered tea, without which no Tibetan could carry out a discussion. While we were waiting for it to be brought, he told me of the various animals he had in the park and promised that I should see them later. With the arrival of the tea and the departure of the Lama attendant, the Dalai Lama looked at me and said, "Our good friend Mingar tells me that you do not like the auric colors of this Chinese delegation. He says that they have many weapons upon their persons. In all the tests, secret and otherwise, upon your clairvoyance, you have never failed. What is your opinion of these men?" This did not make me happy. I did not like telling others, except the Lama Mingar Dundop, what I saw in the colors and what they meant to me. In my reasoning, if a person could not see for himself, then he was not meant to know. But how does one say that to the head of a state, particularly to a head who was not clairvoyant? Oh, interesting. Dalai Lama is not clairvoyant. That's very interesting. To the Dalai Lama, my reply was, "Honorable, precious protector, I am quite unskilled in the reading of foreign auras. I am unworthy to express an opinion." This reply did not get me anywhere. The inmost one replied, "As one possessed of special talents, further increased by the ancient arts, it is your duty to say, you have been trained to that end. Now say what you saw. Honorable, precious protector, these men have evil intentions. The colors of their auras show treachery. That was all I said. The Dalai Lama looked satisfied. Good, you have repeated it as you told Mingar. You will conceal yourself behind that screen tomorrow and watch when the Chinese are here. We must be sure. Conceal yourself now, and we will see if you are adequately hidden. I was not. So attendants were called, and the Chinese lions were shifted slightly that I might be entirely concealed. Lamas came in rehearsal as if they were the visiting delegation. They tried hard to locate my hiding place. I caught the thought of one. Promotion for me if I can see him. But he did not get promotion as he was looking on the wrong side. Eventually, the inmost one was satisfied and called me out. He spoke for a few moments and told us to come again tomorrow, as the Chinese delegation were going to visit him in an attempt to force a treaty upon Tibet. So with that thought before us, we took our leave of the most inmost one and wended our way up the Iron Mountain. The following day, at about the 11th hour, we again descended the rocky slope and made our entrance to the inner enclosure. The Dalai Lama smiled upon me and said that I must eat. I was ready for that before secreting myself. At his order, secreting. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Before secreting, secret, like in secret. Okay, secreting myself. At his order, some very palatable food was brought to the Lama Mingar Dandap and me. Comestibles imported from India in tins. I do not know what they were called. I know only that they were a very welcome change from tea, sampa, and turnip. Well fortified, I was able to face the prospect of several hours' immobility more cheerfully. Utter immobility was a simple matter to me and to all lamas. We had to keep still in order to meditate. From a very early age, from 7 years of age to be precise, I had been taught to sit motionless for hours on end. A lighted butter lamp used to be balanced on my head, and I had to remain in the lotus attitude until the butter was finished. This could be as long as 12 hours. So now 3 or 4 hours imposed no hardship. Directly in front of me, the Dalai Lama sat in the lotus attitude on his throne 6 feet above the floor. He and I remained motionless. From without the walls came hoarse cries and many exclamations in Chinese. Afterwards, I discovered that the Chinese had suspicious bulges under the robes and so had been searched for weapons. Now they were permitted to enter the inner enclosure. We saw them coming, being led in by the household guards, across the causeway and onto the porch of the pavilion. The High Lama intoned, Om Mani Padme Om, and the Chinamen, instead of repeating the same mantra as a courtesy, used the Chinese form, O Mit, O Fo, meaning, hear us, O Amida Buddha. I thought to myself, well, Lobsang, your work is easy. They show their true colors. As I looked at them from my place of concealment, I observed the shimmering of their auras, the opalescent sheen, shot with murky red, the turgid swirling of hate-filled thoughts, bands and striations of color, unpleasant colors, not the clear, pure shades of higher thought, but the unwholesome, contaminated hues of those whose life forces are devoted to materialism and evil doing. They were those of whom they say, they were those of whom we say their speech was fair, but their thoughts were foul. I also watched the Dalai Lama. His colors indicated sadness as he remembered the past when he had been to China. All that I saw of the inmost one I liked, the best ruler ever of Tibet. He had a temper, quite a hot one, and then his colors did flash red. But history will record that there never was a better Dalai Lama, one who was utterly devoted to his country. Certainly, I thought of him with very great affection, second only to the Lama Mingar Dandap, for whom I felt more than affection. But the interview dragged on to its useless end. Useless because these men did not come in friendship, but in enmity. Their one thought was to get their own way and not be too particular about the methods they employed. They wanted territories, they wanted to guide the policy of Tibet, and they wanted gold. This latter had been a lure to them for years past. There are hundreds of tons of gold in Tibet. We regard it as a sacred metal. According to our belief, ground is desecrated when gold is mined, so it is left quite untouched. From certain streams, one can pick up nuggets which have been washed down from the mountains. In the Changtang region, I have seen gold on the sides of swift flowing streams, as sand is on the banks of ordinary streams. We melt down some of these nuggets or sand and make temple ornaments, sacred metal for sacred uses. Even butter lamps are made of gold. Unfortunately, the metal is so soft that ornaments are easily distorted. Tibet is about 8 times the size of the Isles. Large areas are practically unexplored. But from my own travels with the Lama Mingar Dandap, I know there is gold, silver, and uranium. We have never permitted Western peoples to survey, in spite of their fevered attempts, because of the old legend, where the men of the West go, there goes war. Ain't that the truth? It should be remembered when reading of gold trumpets, gold dishes, gold-covered bodies, that gold is not a rare metal in Tibet, but a sacred one.